Welcome back. We're on Exodus chapter 10. I do kind of want to just go back over some of what happened in Exodus chapter 9. Basically, the Lord he left Egypt in ruins, basically. He killed all sorts of animals and people and just made a whole mess of the place. Made life miserable for everyone living there. And the reason he did this is because the Pharaoh wouldn't free the slaves. And the reason the Pharaoh wouldn't free the slaves is because the Lord God, Yahweh, hardened his heart so that he wouldn't free the slaves. So, like, in perspective, you have to see how fucked up that is, and that has to that should kind of make it easier for you to understand why other people might have no interest in worshiping the same God that you worship, and why they constantly point out that he's a dick. Alright? So anyway, here we are, Exodus chapter 10. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Return to Pharaoh and make your demands again. I have made him and his officials stubborn, so I can display my miraculous signs among them." The reason he's making them stubborn is to show off his magical abilities. What is high and mighty and divine about that exactly? What are we supposed to see as so morally perfect about that? I don't see any kind of superior morality coming from that. So that's kind of one of the points here, guys. "I've also done it so you can tell your children and grandchildren about how I made a mockery of the Egyptians, and about how the signs I displayed among them. And so you will know that I am the Lord." So he's also doing this to make a mockery of the Egyptians. That's nice. Thank you. What the hell? This is like totally encouraging racism toward the Egyptians, basically. Because their Pharaoh won't free slaves, because God hardened his fucking heart. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to submit to me? Let my people go so they can worship me. If you refuse, watch out, for tomorrow I will bring a swarm of locusts on your country. They will cover the land so that you won't be able to see the ground. They will devour what little is left of your crops after the hailstorm, including all the trees growing in the fields. They will overrun your palaces and the homes of your officials and all the houses in Egypt. Never in history of Egypt have your ancestors seen a plague like this one." And with that, Moses turned and left Pharaoh. Pharaoh's officials now came to Pharaoh and appealed to him. "How long will you let this man hold us hostage? Let the man go to worship the Lord their God. Let the men go to worship the Lord their God. Don't you realize that Egypt lies in ruins?" So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. "All right," he told them, "go and worship the Lord your God. But who exactly will be going with you?" Moses replied, We will all go, young and old, our sons and daughters, and our flocks and herds. We must all join together in celebrating a festival to the Lord." Pharaoh retorted, "The Lord will certainly need to be with you if I let you take your little ones. I can see through your evil plan. Never! Only the men may go and worship the Lord, since that is what you requested." And Pharaoh threw them out of the palace. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Raise your hand over the land of Egypt to bring on the locusts. Let them cover the land and devour every plant that survived the hailstorm." So Moses raised his staff over Egypt, and the Lord caused an east wind to blow over the land all the day and through the night. When morning arrived, the east wind had brought the locusts. And the locusts swarmed over the whole land of Egypt, settling in dense swarms from one end of the country to the other. It was the worst locust plague in Egyptian history, and there has never been another one like it. For the locusts covered the whole country and darkened the land. They devoured every plant in the fields and all the fruit on the trees that had survived the hailstorm. Not a single leaf was left on the trees and plants throughout the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. "I've sinned against the Lord your God and against you," he confessed. Forgive my sin just this once, and plead with the Lord your God to take away this death from me." So Moses left Pharaoh's court and pleaded with the Lord. The Lord responded by shifting the wind, and the strong west wind blew the locusts into the Red Sea. So he just drowned all the locusts that he summoned. Not a single locust remained in all the land of Egypt, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart again, so he refused to let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Lift your hand toward heaven, and the land of Egypt will be covered with a darkness so thick you can feel it." So Moses lifted his hand to the sky, and a deep darkness covered the entire land of Egypt for 3 days. During all that time, people could not see each other, and no one moved, but there was light as usual where the people of Israel lived. Finally, Pharaoh called for Moses. "Go and worship the Lord," he said, "but leave your flocks and herds here. You may even take your little ones with you." "No," Moses said. You must provide us with animals for sacrifices and burnt offerings to the Lord our God. All our livestock must go with us too. Not a hoof can be left behind. We must choose to our sacrifices for the Lord our God from among these animals, and we want to know how we are to worship the Lord until we get there." But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart once more, and he would not let them go. "Get out of here," Pharaoh shouted at Moses. "I'm warning you, never come back to see me again. The day you see my face, you will die." "Very well," Moses replied. "I will never see your face again." So that was Exodus chapter 10. Hopefully you're kind of like seeing the pattern here. Basically, what's going on is God's just like doing all this, stuff to make life horrible for people for the purpose of showing off his power. For trying to get people to worship him, and it just, this is just messed up. You cannot seriously expect people to read this and see this guy as, a good God, as a high and mighty divine being, a morally perfect individual. You can't seriously expect us to read this and get that message out of that. Yeah, so anyway, we'll be back with Exodus chapter 11. You guys have a good one. Peace.